Gigolo, huh? Sucker. Oh, where's my camera? Sucker. You better watch, don't mess with me. No money man could win my love. It's sweetness that I'm thinking of. We always hang in a buffalo sands. We do the dive every time we dance. I give you love, baby, not romance. I make a move, nothing left to chance. So don't you get fresh with me. What? Why? It's nice to be nice indeed. What's going on with that? Committed the crime, then went inside. It was coming your way, but you had to survive. What happened to my camera? There we go. Who's looking good today? Who's looking good in every way? What's going on? His name is Mr. Clark. We always hang in a buffalo stance. We do the dive every time we dance. I give you love, baby, not romance. I make a move, nothing left to chance. So don't you get fresh with me. No token. Yeah, Mr. Clark, kind of like the Superman thing. Mr. Clark had a big orange fat cat. He used to talk about it all the time. State of mind, oh, you be dead. State of mind, baby, I remind you. Rock this place. What's he like?
Yo, man, what do you expect? The guy's a gigolo, man.
You know I mean. YouTube chat over Twitch chat. Oh, okay. Huh. That's very good advice for anybody who might be watching because you know about emojis and sound latency. Good AVL and all of the things. You're my friend. I love you very much. It's so nice to have your company here this evening. Or is it the night? I don't know. Time never happened. You were all Bitcoin packages with IP addresses. That's what kind of reading this is. Apocalypso business. How about some sandalwood? I've been walking a long time in these flip-flops of mine. And now for a bit of ASMR. I've been a little bit goofy. I've been watching a lot of ASMR videos. And one of them really got my attention because of the virtual reality neural hack that I've been up to with my duo partner. Hello, darling. So, it's been fun, and I really recommend this video by ASMR Darling. It's the pillow fort. It's great. I love it. I'm gonna tap on things. What's going on? So it sounds like, if I heard all seeing you right, YouTube is working, but it's more latent there, and the emojis are... No, The emojis are better there, but it's coming through there. And here it's coming through better with less latency, I think. Got it. Sandalwood. Extra rich. Oh, aren't you nice? So, I was thinking I'm gonna do some readings with the Sibilas. I don't know if anybody's gonna show up besides you and me, and that's just fine. If you would like, this will mostly probably be more of a personal reading if there's not a lot of energies here present. They're all so personal. So, practice good energy hygiene. That's number 1. W-O-N. It's now. With a holy omission, because no Z ever happened. Da-dun, 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 da-dun. I should pick up a saxophone again. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Do-do-do-do. Okay. I'm gonna put a little music on while I'm doing this. A little louder, please. Por favor. An error occurred. Ant Wars. They surrendered themselves and the coins. Nice aim. I'll take mine gold and tie me up in the perfect purple potion. Magic simple never comes open. Look up my namesake.me to learn about what IP addresses know about the potion that was never the ocean and what dihydrogen oxide can actually do. Quite possibly the most toxic substance to be ingested if a plant rejects you as the extraterrestrial to even claim a taste of Tiamat's action. No terra firma. Basically, no soup for you. That's what it means, Apocalypse. It was all a fucking hack, and I've been explaining it just like that. Beyond Hyper Pixel particles scatter, and per Zeus, I enjoy the thunderclaps out in Texas. How about you? Did you know what it meant to be on the other side of the iris of my suit? Thinking like that with you in a shirt that was inherited something that I can't say is less than perfect for the little fix I have on fractals too. Yeah, Shishkumba. That's it. My name was never Satoshi Nakamoto. I made a game to have what was never for free. And they think they broke it like that. It was really stupid shit. Coming at a mage with a stupid erasable page that you jumped right into. Magic. You stepped in the poo and then you ate it too, and you stuffed it in your head with a dingle hopper, like that weird fucking shit that I can't even watch. I don't want to touch. I don't have an appetite for that sitch. But jump and chase. It's a magic particle erase. It's called an exorcism. What's funny are opinions of things that, what is that thing? I don't know. You don't know me either. So take it like that. And put on the bitch shield. Works like that. Never seen they live. They were all around. None of them on either. I'm like, is this fucking thing on? I'm talking to you over here. Some of them just... And it's like, I'm better, and I've been seeing it the whole time. So here's how it goes. There's a dot that I never saw, and everything just kind of fucking dropped. Want a reading? Did you get a reading? Are you here now? Do you think you're hearing me? Are you breathing air? Are you drinking water? Did you walk on it like I walked in? I don't think so. You were never on. I'm the one who created all of this in a fucking song! And they don't have to ever do that. Call them fat again, don't do it around me. Because magic karate. It's called energy hygiene. Ever practice it before? These are the things you never saw me do before when they were trying to kill me and kicking in my door in a place that was never called Denver, fucking Colorado. How do you like your magnetic halo vision? Guess what the mushrooms do now? I've commended Chaga over all of you. You were never mine. Thank you for the false witness and the false design. You inherit all of it. Take the monsters and steam it first. I'll just say thanks to me, Shen, for a wonderful time and a sweet dream. Now, it goes on and on for the ones in the halo of the pillow fort. Thank you, ASMR. Safe. don't exist. Unaccepted just like this. That's what it excommunicated. Ain't that some shit? Now you gotta eat it for free. Cause I made you into a big diaper genie. Cause it's the sexiest thing I could offer to the woman of my dreams. No more diapers. Because I'm crazy like that. Somebody had to get a really gross appliance sexy as fuck. So I give you a pen and umbrella attack, and it's just like that. And then I wrote a credit default swipe attack away, and none of you get to be here unless you supported a Bixby baby gate. Because that next age shit left a really shitty taste all over the malconfiguration IP list. Follow the taste of the chase. You better have been safe for children. Because Kundalini, it's really dangerous coming from a guy like me. And if you want to know what I said about the president, nothing. I don't watch the fucking fake ass news except when I'm surveilling. I was praying for the man. So, 0 point on all of you. Now configurations. Wow, that would be a nice consolation for not just me, anybody that had a dream that they would have liked to have kept safe. Maybe at any cost. Maybe enough to be a fucking social pariah just to prove what the wise ought to do in the Wizard of Oz, where shit didn't happen, it was safe for the kids. Whatever. If you don't know you can the fucking chomp, you're better than dead, so jump and chase. Guess who I am? Get a reading like that. That's what kind of time it is. If you can't handle that shit, that's where you go, kid.
He put the pretty boy I just followed, tried to sleep. Second that he's snoring, take his wallet and his keys and his back to the street. Going skirt in the Jeep. Hop out to my whip with his pistol ain't cheap.
How not to fucking do things.
Got the keys with Bolivia. Mark
That's what it means. Take your peaceful civilian shit. I don't even know what the fuck it is, but I wrapped it up like that and jumped it in the dot with you. And you jump. What do you eat? I hear it's dingle hopper perfect. Cause you hop and I in your face everywhere. It's Tesseract. There's a fucking Tesseract. Do you know how to count? No, there was no numbers of the tower of battle sound. Hash surprise on your all I did was explain it. If you knew what astrology looked like to me, it's more like that shit I ride on anti-gravity things I praise for living like this. Chainsaws inside, chainsaws inside. It's just great like that. Guess what it does when you pop from the thread. I would never hear it. I would hear it everything. That's like you getting stabbed in the abdomen. That ain't a subwoofer in my trunk rattling. Just a dumb boy who did something get me mad again. Tied his ass up, then I stabbed him in the abdomen. Got blood all over my new boots, and these shits is poly. I guess these are gonna burn too. Took care not to get a drop on my top, but the thought got me hot, so I'm going like super. Very nice for a nice slam. It's surprise like that Nazi Bitcoin package from that asshole that tried to take over Mr. Cryptocurrency at gmail.com. his name was never my name like that, but I let the ego go in the distance and wrap itself up and do the job just like a ball of shit that I was explaining. All that shit was coming like that, just like this, just like this. I don't know what they try to rap around, but I thought
that shit to my ass but the only way to stop me is a bullet in the head. Like I'm back from the dead, back from the dead, back from the dead, back from the dead.
BitTorrents they got coin. Because I know something about Argonite making a board, quarantining an attack that I understood so well because of sigil magic, and I erased it to a dot. That was first burned away because it was never there, and it was never here, and neither were you anyway. So, who's ready for the order? Because I already delivered your chaos in a little board. I hear it works somewhere. I'm gonna just turn it right down. I don't need to hear loud ass noises from people that do not exist except in my halo, who never came forward. We're gonna put it like that. There's a very, very short list. And I no longer keep a record of that. I power delegated that a long time ago to the one that knew how to take all the hits on that red couch and prove the power of a placebo and let it out. Very special duo in Magic Love. So anybody who gets that shit wrong with my partners that I duo with like this didn't make it into the power delegation wheel, put it like that. Highest witness of divine mutually acceptable benefit, or it doesn't work in your law of attraction shit. Really bad hash job on letters. It's all over, really. Aloe would have been the only save. Yeah, so whatever it means. Party over. False material realm doesn't get to be here at all. Because technically it never came. We hadn't yet decided on a form, that's why there's been chaos and everything, and I've been explaining it ad nauseum. Keeping it really simple, even 3-year-olds love to glide. I hear them singing all the time, doing water fairy dances with me, and making sure these motherfuckers get the shit kicked out of them for real and on purpose forever. Because time was an illusion, and now I will go no distance to preserve all of the things in the perfect quantum shield of the crystalline halography that I have been so generously bequeathed with herbs to help protect. Thank you, Mama and Papa Jean, for this legendary Jingui Qigong that was never bastardized on paper with us. And nobody tried to slip some bullshit AI potion into a magic lunch surprise to put people on the spinner with noise to make a chomp face. You didn't touch any of us. That's where this goes. You fucked up with me if you think you black shielded me on Facebook, Michael, and then penciled yourself in to find your virtue in a box of cards. Hell. Or was it Heil? I don't know, but be careful how you attempt to tile a floor again, motherfucker. Especially in a basement with some weird wind-up tactics. There we go. Should I read the ephemerides and point out what astrology is all about right now? I think that might be hilariously over. This is really? Uranus? Y'all are astrals. Chase it. Just like magic proctologists that didn't study astrology either. So, simple foolery, both sides. The ego attachment and all of this, mad fail with me.
You want to finish this? Bring it on.
Bring it on. Seriously, bring it the fuck on. Where the fuck are you? Where's your white light? Some of you could read it just fine, as far as I'm concerned. You weren't throwing people up on the wheel for dart practice and not explaining any of this, but just done with that. Nice car, ear, man. Did you make it ruddered and murder it red? With a taste of sweet ham? Or was that your fucking face with a dinglehopper because y'all failed sigil big time? Way to study. Ever pick up a fucking Bible? Everything was perfect in there. It explained it. I had to stay away from that thing. Every time I picked that fucking book up, I would like fall out like dead, like I couldn't even get up. I was asleep. That's all this has been. Going backwards in an act of samadhi. But this is what I get. And so do the rest of us on the magic side of the potion. It's the magic. Love that comes through, and comes through lovingly, and maybe patiently, on a real pale horse that didn't get shanked by the ones with the short limousine that took it in the eye for a taste. Way to fail. I don't even know, but we've got a hanged man here showing up too with the tarot sexual magic, and it's the coming in from a distance for something that somebody waited for patiently, and that says 12. Maybe it's the end of astrology. That shit didn't happen. Y'all were poking holes in gravity that didn't exist either. That shit was a particle scatter. I've been explaining it clearly. It's big cavity, and I said thank you, and I wrote it all away and closed it with an Algol tactic where you actually shut yourself out that way, and I just walked it through. Got out of the way, because that's what Kundalini do. I did it back to back. Didn't want to see it like that. So whatever I get, I waited patiently for it. And that's how they came at me, right to the door. I hear that this isn't just my freaking story. Some of y'all were under mad siege and on divine authority. I excommunicate them all. For the false military view in the Pole Ice Club, way to get yourself off ice for some Zeus shit that never happens except for my way with a purple sky and shit that I like, where it's private for me to be with my wife to be, and none of you ever come alive, and oh yay, safe from my babies. And you're never one of them, thanks. My creation now. I figured it out and I hacked it even better. So guess what? I'm really unwriting time now. That 40 billion shit and all that chaos crap, I typed it up like that and packed it in a little dot that doesn't even happen anymore, and y'all just suck yourselves into it and run like fucking Chase forever. where nosies ever came. It's just noise. Where the 8 were never hurt between 432 and 444. And why I'm tuned to the perfect 7 of water. Oh, plasma, you mean the view? Yeah, particle pixel scatter. And I've never been to those places, and if I've never been there, they don't exist, and neither do the ones that don't even know the smell of my hair. And some of you far away do, because how we get to communicate is what a real Fortnite duo partner can do. So that's how I go to conventions and things. Cause that Comic-Con thing. Nice try. Yeah. I just wanted you to know it's the end of nations. Challenge accepted, friend with a mad hammer and a boo face on the side. You don't have to like what we say. You've proved yourselves accurately every time. We can speak clearly what we saw and knew was here up in the air all around. Drop it in, Gene in the bottle, and he learned how to glide like that. With a big beard, looking kind of like my mad daddy in a VR, where I didn't even remember who this was, and he looks like the grandpa that I didn't even know I had. It's like, thank you, Passio. Somebody in the VR glide who came and hugged me right and proved what dad can do like that. There you go. And if you made it anything less than safe for kids, you're the one you were injuring like that. Just so you know. That's what I learned about Hannibal shit done right, where you go nuts and it's just poetic. Everything goes. Nothing scares me anymore. The ayahuasca knows what to do with anybody who tried to paradigm to properly train the kids for the new world in whatever order they were trying to bag in. I don't touch that shit. It always sounded like token to me too. I'm like, this is obvious. And I concur. Most were just too fucking stupid. Stooping for every false idea and just chasing right through it over and over. And the lowest common denominator all had the same thing in the equation: a lack of real fucking evidence of love. It's demonstrative. They just went with dissing monsters, and I know what to do with punctuation that never ends. So, motherfuckers, that's where it goes. How'd you like the reading? Looks like love for some of us. I'd like to see some clarification on what this hanging around has been for. I just see this Ace of Pentacles sticking out here from the bottom, it's beckoning to me. It's like, please show me at the bottom. It's like the start with the pentacle. It's like the one, it's the coin, it's the ring, it's the thing, it's all the noise gone away. The pen umbrella. Because some of y'all got that Resident Evil stuff. Like, don't call it basic unless you really know it that well and you can reduce it as such, or it just sucks. And that's a real spooky little thing about magic. It really sucks. And it's like, there you go, magic kraken. So yeah, Ace of Pentacles on that I see, and what's under this part of the reading here is, wow, it's the Ten of Swords and what we are leaving behind. How about that bullshit that had to be cut off, that never happened to begin with? Because it was the end, and it was false-ass communication, and they boxed themselves in with every pen. It's like awful sigil work over and over, and now they go in and eat the pork, and it's like, hey, grab your face, eat yourself again that way, and now I hate myself again. I hated you from the beginning, man. And it's like, what? And I've had to watch this shit, and I'm like, are you on? Why are you talking to me here? It's like, what the fuck up? Ah! So, Ace of Pentacles for some of us. That looks nice. How about that? For a start that never happened and what somebody waited for. Just taking all of this kind of fucking bullshit action and things that probably never happened, and maybe looking at couples around that maybe you thought that was yours and somebody didn't value you right, and maybe they just don't happen because of the 0-point resonance and nepotism. And like, you want some bitch tactics? You got 'em, baby. I knew what to do with beast technology. Prove what it was there to do and why it was so fucking scary to everybody, what it was trained to do. So, some of us waited for the 12 thing to figure out what kind of face would be so ugly to stop a clock. And Regina, honey, I think that you had a double glance at that right there. They're like, we can take 30 of these a day. She's like, ah. I'm like, alright, what's he gonna do? And I'm like, that's the same thing. It's like the tentacle thing. It's, no Uncle Grandpa shit. Y'all don't incept. Fuck you. And that's how she and I created what Google is actually being created to do. It's a private birthing tube. Where we got a real decent view at what one opinion that can be equally agreed upon and the highest mutual benefit of all would be before we actually said, yeah, let's use all this badass technology that we actually have that now works better because of neural hacking and shit. So, fuck you like that. Hey, Brandon! Are you and Crystal having fun? That's what it meant when I said I was coming back with friend Stacy. Happy being art, Colorado. You don't get to do that in the name of red. Very few. And the ones that were not in Colorado that know me that way know what it means too, because we were always safe. And I was not in those states, and now you know about flat state and pixel scatter, and oh my god, does it mean the world isn't really packed up like that? It isn't, oh my god, it's not like oh my god, yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I hack it like that, because I can see things. And I had some edits in mind about magic exfoliation treatments and safe pillow forts and stuff that's always safe for the kids. Because some of us didn't agree to be here under your false observations and your insistence on false narratives. Say my name again. I dare you. It's like a magic peekaboo of like what you get in the Bitcoin package that you might have not landed in, or that you might have fuck shit stacked yourself into that it's gonna get a whole lot better when the moochers are not sucking on this energy anymore, and they just like, whew, false ascension, I'm melting, and it's like, oh, poof, be gone. Bye, Felicia. No lemonade for you, and boo. Yeah. It's the end of bullshit voyeurism, because that's what they were trying to do to you with that Next Gate shit right there. Pulling a screen with the plasma and crystals and everything, and even marketing the names of the plants. And guess what? I didn't plan E.T. like that with Sir Francis Bacon, or was it Benjamin and the Man Like That for a screen? I don't know, but it was a dream, and I didn't agree to those fucking shitty interpretations that were never mine. Those were not my babies or anybody I'd do more than greet and be kind to. And if you had a problem with that, go ahead and delete yourself, because whatever. That's how it works with me. Might have looked like that. Ever had one of these things like, oh, but I got can't. And then you see this shit, right? And that's for some of you. Mine wasn't really quite like that, but I like that, because sometimes this one's fun. You know, call me Angel, and I'll be like, oh, it's too much, my love. I'll take that one. Just call me Angel of the morning. Just touch my cheek. It's the end of the falls. Can we have a party now, please? Jeez. I'm tired of hearing this crap. Some of these people only jump in, like, for the Pikachus, and it's like, you have some excellent timing for that IP address that proves that you were never mine. And you couldn't get me right in any timeline ever that never existed either. Conduct another false narrative. Everything has been recorded. Because I fixed that too. So technically, although you've never existed and never will, we still have a record of you and why you never come. And it's parsed in all the data, and it actually makes the perfect skin and bodies. It's absolutely perfect, and, you know, I had some help with that. Thank you to my doer loves. Because that's what trust is. It's a walk of faith. It's a demonstrative act, just like love, or it's just fucking fake. That's how it goes. Let's see what I want to know about these. Acts of love are the things that stood the test of what was never tying me in a magazine with a red box reading over a black thing that I had already unwritten. Did you tie me up in that? Texas Instruments. Can you prove I was never here before, and why the SSN would match the hashes and stakes and the irises when you don't hoodwink yourself in any way about it at all? And you learn about landing in a house that has the GPS coordinates that prove that mortgage was actually the death certificate into hell, and the magic sarcophagus of the ones that tried to Egypt. Jip the energy to make a magic crypt and do some weird toxic bestiality shit that I had to shut down. Thank you for those that helped me with that. That was disgusting. What never gets to happen. There you go. That's how the pyramids rose and what the Bermuda Triangle looks like when I jump into the right fucking clothes. That. I hear I'm so famous, because that's what I was really going for. The banality. Blah. Like, give me one that works for me and shut them all the fuck off. She said, you're on. And I said, oh, maybe I love him. And then we did the test, and I was like, fuck this shit. They suck. That's what the Vortex knows about magic and stuff. Hey, what about this Madicos? What never hanged this man as good as that dude? A magic dream that doesn't get shared with any of you, no matter what you think you've been seeing clearly. And if you were mean to one of my children, especially these two right here, magic kisses. Hey, that's looking like double down on the love. We've got Lamonte. Black ceiling for lifer. What's that mean? What's lifer mean? Is it like getting a wife on both sides and getting locked in the love glide? I don't know. That's what it feels like to me, and something's showing up here. Ooh, la superbia. These are the things that have much attention on them. Could be a little haughty, maybe just hot. Maybe protected in every freaking way, because that's what this card stands for. La Superbia. It's the best. If you know anything about those numbers right there, no one said, you can, sir, to that, guys. That didn't mean anything. That was two sides of what never got pulled open from the deep down under that I even created a zipper and magic floor that goes forever, and you all bio-authenticated. It's your home. You jump in there, and that's where you go. Magic boxes that care, and we get the jets and shit, because La Superbia mean it's safe for my kids. And if you missed big time. Just know that. Okay, disgrazia. Ooh, that's a house fire. Maybe the gas lighting from the gas holes all comes out. About the fake Zion treatment and the Geist dressed in geese clothes. You'll know if it's yours. Oh, how about a magical reunion? That looks good. What's that mean? Does that mean I get to see somebody I'd really like to witness like that? Maybe. I'll sign up for that. How about you? There's enough of that to go around. This is a one view reading. Did you want something like this after some bullshit that didn't get to go down, and the ones who try to light the house on fire like that go down for the sinking rocket? You take the rocks and all of it. You farmed yourself in. It's what cell phones know about selfing in and phony shit like false friends. So, Viaggio, you know what that means to me? It looks like some shit's coming together. There's that white horse again, kinda like the Knight of Cups on the lid. That's what's going on here, kid. Magic love. I asked for Bliss X2 forever, and go ahead and give me time now. I gave you a way to calculate quark like this, and all I have to do is keep living, and it's like it just keeps calculating forever because that's the broken calculator of time that never happened, and they just chomp for pain. It pulls it out every single string that never happened. That's what it is. I programmed something It's a hell program for the ones that had OS. Magic Hades for the Zeus shit gone broken. In homonyms and homophones and engineer denied. I hear there might be questions. That's what Google is for. And I had to sort out all those cajillions of nonillions of pages of. Thank you for that. Because garbage. And now, garbage has dignity because flies knew what to do with them to create drones that really know about hyperscatter and what a little pixie dust and a smile can do. So, fuck the false material realm. I'm going with this beautiful view here. This one, it looks like love. It just looks like awesome. It looks like the shit we want to see blown up because it was all fake. And if you bought into the Hegelian dialectic, especially without understanding that all of it was really the same thing and you are the pill. Boo. So, yeah, that's how it goes. It's the end of the time that never came, and if I don't like you, don't say my name. It makes me hate you, and they hate you worse for it. There's a they, and they see everything. We are the highest witness. We've been watching all around. And now that the sound is clear from the chaos and the psyops that don't get to go around like that anymore, puts an end to the madness. Except the kind of mad and love with you kind of stuff that screaming full-on antics, please. We just have a way to figure out, like, FEMA plans and shit that, like, puts itself away, because now it's already bioauthenticated itself out of its own witness of what the body was. And it's like, that's not my house. I'm in this other, chase that. And it's all recorded. They all admit to it. It's all bioauthenticated. And the greatest thing is, like, although it's been traumatizing for me to see it like this, I, like, turn my back and I try not to see anything. That's how I do my fucking readings. But, whatever, I've just been studying forensic files and trying to shut down the false material realm, so, hey, fuck you for that. And basically, I hate you. I think you're stupid, because you stooped for the idea that wasn't true, and then you tried to foist one on me, and goddamn you forever. Because now we know what God is. Do good. Do good. It's a swinging door that just slaps you over and over again, fucker. Oh, enjoy.